for the thing to come on. Okay.
Okay, so now it's on. Now, one of the things that I think is worth talking about is what I would possibly call current events, or what's happening on the world stage right now.
Right.
And that one of the things that has been going on is that Robert has put me back in touch with one of those major books of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa that is now on the internet that I had lost track of. And the name of the book is Anapanasati Bhavana by Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. That dog just destroyed the fan. Busted the blade. Oh, let me see what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to let it go.
Getting really excited.
Lucky is an alpha. She just does not let things go. This is my territory, and that's that. So she's going to make sure of it. Anyway, back to the book on Anapanasati. It's got a cloud over it because of the fact that while the book in Thai language is a major, important book in Thailand, it's still well loved, well regarded, and constantly in publication by the society that we call BIA, Buddhadasa Estepano Archives. And it's a huge organization in Bangkok with literally tens of thousands of members. I mean, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa really is big time in Thailand. I would go so far as to say that in Thailand, he would be more well known and more well loved and supported, even 25 years after his death, than any Christian, one particular Christian preacher, including Billy Graham. That Bhikkhu Buddhadasa would have even a higher status than even Billy Graham would have had. That's the kind of status that he has, and that book is up at that top. In fact, there's an entire room in the National Library that's dedicated solely to Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. Now that's saying something. Imagine in the archives called the Library of Congress, that there's a whole area
just for him.
Just one monk. Right, that's how it is at the entire National Library of Thailand. Has a whole room set aside just for the works of Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. So that's the kind of level that he has, and this book is at the top of that. Now, the problem with the book in English language is that when it was published in English, the last section of the book was somehow left out. That the Dhammanupassana, or the tetrad, body, feeling, mind, and mind objects, the entire Vipassana section, the mind objects part of the book, was not published. It was lost. The translation was lost.
I see.
But and that there has been no translator who has felt up to a worthy of the task. But finally, we've got Robert.
Oh,
who
that's
was a good friend. Right, you know him, in fact. So Robert's going to be doing the translation of that, and he's the one that put me back onto the fact that the part of it that's in English that was published is there on the internet. So that's one of the things that I've been doing, is rereading this book and finding out how important the Anapanasati Sutta is in relationship to Paticca Samuppada. I had never quite caught the connection with practice of Anapanasati itself and the practice of Paticca Samuppada. In fact, the deeper you go into the practice of Anapanasati, the more you get into the layers of Paticca Samuppada. They work directly together, and Bhikkhu Buddhadasa points out how that happens here, that relationship, especially all of the various detailed parts of the mind that fit very well with modern neuroscience. That this stuff was actually worked out, and Bhikkhu Buddhadasa, I haven't seen it in the Pali in the sutras, but I know that he's getting it from various places. That he'll get this from that area and this from that area and puts it together. And then I'll take his stuff and put it with other sutras, and I'm coming up with my own way of talking. There's no other way to do it. But one of the things that I wanted to point out to my students, especially the old ones, because it's a point that I have been missing. As you know, when I'm teaching Anapanasati, that there is the four foundations of mindfulness in the sense of the Kaya, the Vedana, the Citta, and the Dhammanupassana. The four parts of it that give rise to the 16 steps of Anapanasati. Step 1 to 4 being the body. Step 5 to 8 being Vedana. Step 9 to 12 is the mind, and step 13 to 16 is the Dhammanupassana. In fact, you had actually written a question at one time about step 13 to 16. Okay.
Right.
So you're following along. Right.
About consciousness, right? Yes.
Yes. And how consciousness fits into that. But consciousness is actually right there in the earlier parts of it. And that there is a major relationship between Vedana and Citta. That in the Paticca Samuppada, they are actually mixed together. That there is Vedana, there's Citta, Vedana, and Citta, leaving rise to actually Vedana of the feelings, but there is Vedana in the Sankara and other things like that. Now, one of the things that were that I had seen and known before and talk about it is how the body conditions feelings and the feelings condition the mind, and the mind is conditioned and conditions the feelings. So if we gladden the mind, we're also improving the Vedana. We're gladdening the Vedana kind of also. And so the point that that's making is at the step number 8, when it's talking about the mental conditioners. Now here, the change in the focus is not that feelings are the mental conditioner, but rather the conditioner here is actually, the Pali word is Sankara. And the Citta Sankara here is actually talking about the way that perception operates, that makes that connection between the Vedana and Citta. That there's a direct connection with this. So it's not only just the feelings are the conditioner, but rather that the word conditioner should be as the conditioning itself. Okay. What I mean by that is that as the Sankaras are used, the old memories, our old feeling systems, because that's the important thing is that our memories are stored as and like feelings. We normally think of memories as either visual objects, that I remember a visual object, or I remember sound, or I put together a story, or like an MTV or a movie video or whatever. Without understanding that, oh no, the real issue is that the feelings also are stored. Oh, I see. I see. What happened to you? And in fact, the psychologists talk about it in the sense of psychological archaeology. And then the client will come up with the idea, oh, I'm such an asshole now because my mommy gave me a spanking when I was 4 years old. Okay. Now, that's not the right way to look at it. The right way to look at it is, why is he an asshole now? Is because he's been being in the habit of being an asshole for many years now, and that's what's being stored as a memory, is how to be an asshole. That in fact, he may have been expressing how to be an asshole, and that's why he got that spanking. But he doesn't remember that part. He's not remembering the fact that all of the stuff that's happening is basically feeling based. So that when we perceive something, that feeling based then will color what's going on in the present moment. Here's an example of that that I use often, that you've got two guys standing on this side of the street and they see a guy on the other side of the street. And one of them will like him and the other one doesn't like him. But the reality is that neither one of them know this guy. But they're both working out of their own past. For instance, this guy may look like one of the man's preachers, his dearly beloved preacher. The other guy, it may look like his boss. Okay, and so they're going to have different feelings in the present moment based upon their own old stored feelings. This is why the feelings are such a conditioner. It's not that the feelings that I'm having in this moment condition my mind. The example of that would be trying to get someone who is in a debate. If you can get them angry, then you can win the debate because they get confused. Or in a martial arts exercise, if you can get your opponent angry, then and you're still with good presence of mind, because he's angry, he's wanting to hit you too hard or hit you too quickly or whatever like that, and it will make his actual performance weaker because he's angry. That's the way of saying that these feelings condition the mind in this moment. And that happens often. Okay, somebody's in love and now food tastes differently, etc., like that. That's what I'm getting at, is that feeling systems in the present moment condition the mind in the present moment. But I'm not looking at that. What I'm looking at is the feelings of the past condition the feelings that we have now. We get into the habit feelings. How to say it? A habit pattern of feelings. We don't just have mental habits, but a lot of it has to do with feelings. And now we want to talk about it in the sense of going back from step number 8, going back to step number 6, which is the step that the Buddha has as step 6 and 7, is piti and sukha. Piti is what is often translated as rapture, and most Westerners have it as the sense of it will be something that comes up or arises, like bodily sensations, kundalini arising, and this kind of thing. This is what is normally referred to as, number one, it's an event, and number two, it happens spontaneously. But Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is putting a much different emphasis on it, just like he puts the emphasis on step number 10 in the mind of gladdening the mind. He also says, oh no, we have to actually manufacture this rapture.
I see.
That piti is to develop, and in fact, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is absolutely right, because rapture is that which is a training to be done. Mindfully breathing in and mindfully breathing out, we develop rapture. Now, I can see the confused look on your face, and that's exactly what I'm trying to create. Is what the hell is rapture?
Right.
Okay. That's the whole point of it, is that most people don't understand. But in this book, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa clearly lays it out. And he clearly lays it out in two different ways. One is laying it out in the sense of sensuality or sensual pleasure rapture, which is the kind that we know about. And by talking about that, we can then talk about what is the spiritual rapture or this mental rapture that we're trying to actually develop. Now, the normal rapture that we have is a rapture we normally try to develop it like happiness from the outside. So let me give you an example. The woman is a real estate agent, and she's been working on getting this real estate deal for months now. And finally, she has the signature of both the buyer and the seller on the contract. She's sitting in front of the seller, and he's signing it. And then what is this woman experiencing that moment is a great sigh of relief. And also a great sigh of, I've done it.
I see.
I've got it. I've won. I'm successful. And it also has a quality of relief. Now, there's another one, and that is someone who's running a foot race, say 100 yards dash or something like that. And as the guy who is winning is reaching the goal, when he's reaching the finish line, he knows it. That's when his rapture starts, before he gets the goal. As he's approaching it, just like the real estate woman, she hadn't gotten her money yet, but she's got the contract.
I see.
That's the rapture moment.
I see.
The rapture moment for that runner is when he knows he's going to win the race, whether it's a car race or a bicycle or a motorcycle or a foot race. There comes a time. But think about the guy on the foot race. So many of them, when they break through that line or the winning banner strip, they do it with their chest wide open. Okay, I win. Right? This is the quality that we're calling rapture. This is pity. This is the state of mind. I've got it. This is also the state of mind of relief. It's over. Because in fact, the guy who won that foot race was working really, really hard. That last microsecond, he probably was in fact slowing down already. Because he thought he had won. In fact, that's the dangerous point in time, because that's when the guy who's absolutely determined he's going to catch this guy, he gets out a split second before, okay? But the first guy thought he had already run the waste, and so that's when he's having his rapture moment, only to be followed by second place.
I see.
Okay.
The closest thing I can describe to a rapture moment, probably first semester in college, after I think fall semester, after my finals were over, I distinctly, even now, remember a very strong sense of it's finally over, it's done. It never came back like subsequent semesters, but probably my first semester, because there was so much intense pressure to adapt to the college, I guess, like way of doing things, that I remember distinctly when I went out of my last final, there was such a relief, like the hairs on my back were like standing up. I was like, it's done, it's finally done. I think that's probably the closest I have. That's probably like a very strong impression. Yes. All
right. So now that we're understanding that, you can see where there is some sort of relationship to the word rapture that's used in Christianity, in the sense of the end of the world. It's finally over. Now we're going to finally get to go to heaven. You know, that's what the kind of idea of rapture is like. Oh gosh, it's over now. A complete relief, but it's also not mixed with the relief, because when the fight's over, even the loser feels like relief. But this is the relief plus the win. This is the champion. This is when the arms go into the air. This is when they spike the football. Okay, it's that moment. Now, young men, and in fact, I think all men in the normal world also experience that in the following way. There comes a moment in time after the date is in process when the guy knows for sure tonight he's going to get laid. You laugh, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That point may be when the panties come down. It may be when the vizier comes off. It may be when the door closes. It may be in the taxi cab. But whenever it is, the guy knows I'm going to get it. I'm going to get laid, you know, and that feeling of overwhelming success, because look how much work I have put into getting this done. And now I know that I'm successful at it. All right. That's what we mean by rapture. And when students understand that this is what we're looking for and it is to be cultivated.
I see.
And how are we going to do that? We're going to do it a little bit at a time. And I'm already teaching this, and so this is just a repeat, but I've got a new frame of reference now using this word rapture, because what does the guy say? He says, I've done it. Now, the way that we talk about it in meditation is, aha, I see you. I've caught you. That's that rapturous moment, to start building that up, to say, I'm very successful. I am complete. I'm doing it. Okay, because that rapture, that joy of success, then melts into happiness or satisfaction, which is number step number 6. So it starts with sukha, it starts with piti as a practice to be developed, followed by satisfaction. Now, satisfaction is different, or the feeling of satisfaction is a little bit different from the feeling of success. The feeling of success is like the feeling of champion. It's the feeling also of relief, but then that relief does kind of take over into being completely satisfied.
I see.
That complete satisfaction, that sukha, that this is good, this is nice. And that we're going to start practicing that every time we can think about it.
I see.
Is going through that process. Now, for the beginning student would be, and all students, as far as I know, are still beginners. Why? Because the mind wanders away. And whenever we recognize that mind wandering away, we can say, I caught you. I can see you. And that changes the whole frame of reference. So if I'm over here being really angry about something that's happening on the internet, really ticked off somebody, and then I have that moment, which can be called an aha moment, when we wake up, that sati, to recognize I do not have to be sitting here trashing that guy in my own mind. I can, in fact, be here joyful. Aha, I caught you, Mr. hating somebody on the internet. I got you. Now, you're going to be able to do that a lot in this move, because you're going to run a lot of dukkha. Every old laptop is a decision, and that's an opportunity for you to say, wait a minute, I don't need this thing. I can be free from it. I call you my attachment to that old dead laptop.
Oh, okay. I see. So yeah, so basically we're basically, putting a new spin on, basically the aha moments, like congratulating ourselves for catching the mind. And the context here is actually it's cultivation of rapture. That's what this is.
This is the cultivation of rapture. And I have not been telling the students that that's what this is, step 6. But by reading this, it says, I got to start telling them that, because they can do it even better when they understand more about what they're doing.
Right. And
the cultivation of rapture, the training of rapture, all has to do with that grand feeling, I can do this. This is successful.
I see. So, is it right? So I'm just putting this into some like a mental framework for me is, so there's really like 2 main things that we're doing here. One is, seeking out and enjoying nibbana moments. So that, cultivates satisfaction. But this, the emphasis of the aha moment is cultivating rapture.
Uh-huh. But in fact, in that nibbana moment, right going into it, you could say that nibbana moment, at the bottom of it is sukha, and the going into it is the rapture.
It's the rapture, right? Because you recognize like the net.
I can do this. I can have a nibbana moment. And so you go right from the rapture right into that deep sukha that can also be referred to as the nibbana moment. A complete release and let go. And we want to cultivate these, practice them, develop them as skills.
Oh, I see. This is really helpful because I feel like, at least for me, I'm not sure about, I can't speak for the other students, but yeah, I used to think that, rapture was something that was exclusively reserved when you entered, something like the first or second jhanas, because that's like the usual stuff that they talk about, like, concentration, rapture, and then like what you said before, the kundalini and like the electric like stuff like pulsing through the body and things like that. Yeah, I see. So this is a very practical like understanding of
yes. Right, it's a very practical understanding of rapture, and that is that it is a tool to use to get into first jhana, and in that regard, it's a jhana factor. And rather than saying it, because I'm in jhana, one of the things that are going to tag along is the rapture. Oh no, the jhana factors have to be all developed and all brought together.
Right, it's the other way around. Rapture gives rise to the first jhana.
Right. Nothing is actually going to independently arise on its own. Everything is dependently arisen.
The big themes, right, that we're getting at.
Yeah, that's a seed of Dhamma worth remembering. Yes, the things don't arise on their own, and yet many people have that kind of magical thinking in Buddhism in the West. That if I sit long enough, then I'll magically get some benefit out of it.
Right.
Or like the idea that if I can get to first jhana, then rapture will magically arise on its own. No, that's not the way that it is. We've got to develop this stuff.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, wow, that was really helpful. Okay, it's become a much more concrete term for me. I see.
Okay, so remember then that step 6, 7, 8, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, step 5 is to train the mind for this rapture. And the Bhikkhu Buddhadasa is very careful and very clear of making the distinction between that which is, let us say, worked on and manufactured on the outside. For instance, in all 3 of the examples that I gave of it, the first example of the woman who was the real estate agent, she had to work. She had to develop. And she wanted to have that rapturous moment. She had probably been thinking about it. Today, I'm going to get that contract signed. And she's walking in there on a cloud of air saying, I'm going to get that contract signed. But the real top quality of it is when that seller then, or the buyer, signs that contract. It's almost, you can actually see that in many places where the guy who wants that contract most signed, as soon as it's signed, he grabs it. I've got it. It's mine. And he's mistaking the physical contract with the actual meaning of the contract or the concept. The piece of paper means nothing. That what is that I feel like I've finished it. I've done the work.
I see.
All right, so that's an important quality. Same thing is true about the guy who's crossing the finish line. He's had to work very hard for that. And if he had not expected or thought about or having that feeling of the rapture at the end of it, then he wouldn't have bothered even training for the race, never mind doing a race.
I see.
That he was looking for that feeling.
I see.
The woman who had the contract signed, she was looking for that feeling.
So in essence, are we saying that, like, I mean, it seems to me like, if I'm understanding this wrong, it's like, so they're going through all this hard work for all this rapture, but it's so easy to get one, right? Just sit down and enjoy it and remember it. Like, if you just remember, oh, look, I sat down, that's a lot easier, right?
Exactly. But what I'm pointing out here is that in the world, this quality or this feeling of rapture, of the big success, the big win, the big contract, the big kahuna, whatever it is for people, they have this welling up of emotion inside.
Mm-hmm.
And that look how hard they try to get that feeling, when in fact it's directly and immediately available to them through practice.
I see. And that's what we're going for, right? Oh, so, right, I think, so I have a hunch. So basically, like, through training like this, right, we actually teach the mind to see that, like, yeah, we don't need to depend on the external stuff, right? That the happiness really comes from within. Like, I mean, we may consciously understand it, but, you know, the rest of the mind hasn't really been trained yet. And so through...
Right. So this is the training then that gives that benefit. This is actually why the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Noble Path, and especially that second Noble Truth, fits in so closely and so deeply with Anapanasati. It's just one big practice.
Gotcha.
Everything then is back down to that breath, learning how to take a big, deep breath.
I see.
That in fact, that breath then is the rapture itself, taking that rapturous breath. Almost all the time when that woman gets that signed contract signed, her rapture is accompanied by a very unusual breath of one kind or another. Normally it's a very, very big, deep in-breath and a sigh. All right. The same thing is true with the runner.
I see.
Okay.
Gotcha.
That big, big breath. So that first big breath and this rapture are completely integrated.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so I'm going to keep this in mind because the Zen is getting tired, so to speak. So, you know, that I'm tired. If Zen Masters, if you, yeah, I'm going to continue. This is really. Thank you so much.
Okay, yes, this is a good time to finish. I know that you've got to go. We made 1 point.
Yes.
And so let's just stay with that 1 point today, which we're talking about Vedana, the middle section of Anapanasati, of rapture, sukha, or pleasure, and then experiencing the tranquilization of all of the old feelings, so that we can feel the way that we want to now, rather than feeling the way that we were feeling because of our habits. You've got a new way of feeling now.
Gotcha. Because of rapture. Okay, understood.
Because of the rapture.
I see. Gotcha. So that's the thing that will reprogram, or actually just break off the old like feeling habits, habit feelings.
Yes.
That's good. Okay.
Find a new habit feeling system.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm going to give
it a feeling of success, a feeling of being a champion, a feeling of a lion.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm going to give this a really good try. I feel like this is really practical. Thank you. I will see you very soon. Thank you.
Okay, Willie. Have a good one day.
Thank you.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.